Hello, everyone. So, sorry that you have to deal with me twice in a row, but I'll try to be interesting. So, do I have next slide? Oh no, this is my last slide. Okay, good. So, yeah, I'm Simon from Handprint. I'm also an academic and also from Global Mangrove Trust. But I was asked to talk a little bit specifically about the role that advertising can have within the sustainability space, right? And I just put these three numbers up as a kind of general reminder of where we are in the world, right? So we are at about 417 parts per million in terms of carbon concentration. We should be below 350. Right now we are experiencing what is known as the sixth mass extinction. We're losing species on Earth about 100 times faster than in the historical average. The last time we lost species at this rate was about 65 million years ago when the dinosaurs were extinct. And despite significant progress in the last 20, 30 years on resolving extreme poverty, still about 1 person in 10 on this planet lives below $2 a day. So when we talk about sustainability, and even in the two conversations we've had before, we very often only talk about carbon. And I think that is a massively missed opportunity that needs to be addressed. Now, in the advertising space, there's one famous saying, well, there's probably many, but doing advertising is like winking at a girl in the dark, or doing business without advertising. You know what you're doing, but nobody else does. And so as a consequence, advertising is essential to business. And in very recent times, and for me, really, when we started Handprint, now about 3.5 years ago, I think about since then, since 2020, we've seen advertising companies getting asked more and more by the brands that they serve, say, can you help us when it comes to sustainability? And their honest answer should have been absolutely not. We have no idea what you're talking about. But given that they're in advertising, they're used to talking shit. So they said, yes, and we will start trying to help you. And then they came to us and say, we have no idea what we're doing. Can you help us help them? And just to give you a little bit of perspective on what is this market, and I don't think anyone here is in... How many people are in advertising in this room? Okay, just a very few of you. So, but if you look at advertising, global budgets, about $2.6 trillion, so $2,600 billion in advertising, about $630 billion of that is in digital ads. And I just put nature protection. The requirement for 2023, based on the state of finance for nature, is $210 billion. This is how little money we need to avoid catastrophe. Not even 10% of how much companies spend on media and advertising. Now, and to say not even 10%, 86% of this budget already comes from governments. And we are not going to reach that remaining 14% that should be coming from companies. So the challenge, although it seems very often intractable, actually is very easy to solve. But the problem is we are approaching it in a fundamentally outdated way. So what are advertising companies doing in order to deal with this massive sustainability challenge? They started to do what everyone else is doing. We got to figure out how do we decarbonize advertising, right? And if you look at the data on like programmatic, then most of that actually doesn't come from putting ads on people's devices. It comes from kind of programmatic buying, which requires a lot of energy. Now, the real question that should be asked is not where is all of this energy going to and how is that being used and is it the right way of using it? The real question is, if you know this, are you going to change your strategy? Are you going to stop programmatic buying because it's bad for the planet? If the answer is no, you fundamentally should not care about it. You should not worry about this nonsense, like, oh my God, like there's such high energy consumption. Yes, it's energy, it's electricity. The world is moving towards green electricity. Once we solve that electricity production, all of this is going to fade away. But the old narrative suggests that, no, we have to be very good at this. We have to measure exactly the environmental footprint of an ad put on a device. We have to be able to tell our customers how quickly are we decarbonizing, right? And so we had companies like Scope 3 with whom we work. They're doing fantastic work in that delineation of responsibility and the Ad Net Zero plan that are trying to figure this out. They're trying to help companies, help brands understand how damaging is your advertising campaign, and can we then do something about it? Roughly speaking, a $100,000 advertising campaign has a footprint of about 2.5 tons. So you can offset that for about $50. Okay? Those are the kind of rough numbers. And then there are companies like Seen This, which is managed by a friend of mine, and that's not why I'm advertising it, but that are doing this kind of in a slightly more systematic way. Right? So they are changing the way ads are being put on a phone rather from upload to streaming, and this can have significant benefits because you're requiring less energy to do this, and then they can demonstrate on their website very nicely, like if you're using Seen This instead of kind of normal video advertising, you're going to avoid a lot of emissions. And we see the same kind of narrative repeating itself with most of the big companies. So I put all of them up here. I think we're working with 4 of them. And I put all of this in very small letters, not because I want you to read this, because exactly that's how little attention I want you to pay to this, right? Because nobody else is paying attention to this, right? These are all of the commitments made by the big advertising companies saying we're going to reduce our carbon emissions in line with the Science Based Targets initiative. Fantastic. That's really useful. But is it really enough? We see companies like OMG proudly putting on their website they planted 100 trees in 2022. That's a $15 billion company. Companies like IPG proudly putting on their website that they are partnering with Charity Water, an amazing charity, providing water to 600 people. That's a $10 billion company, saying that this is something they should be putting on their website. And this, for me, raises the question, are you impressed? One impression in advertising is about 1 gram of CO2. So how impressed are we with this? Fundamental question that we should ask ourselves when we think about this industry and when we think about all of these industries and what they are doing is in line with this conference. Is this all that matters? And for me, the answer is very clearly no. Carbon tunnel vision is one of the biggest threats to our environmental survival, to our survival as a species. As long as all companies and all kind of sustainability narrative focuses on this one issue, which is a big issue, but it is one of many, we are not tackling anywhere near all that matters. What needs to be done is to adopt a fundamentally different approach. An approach in which we turn advertising, much like any other sector, into a force for good, rather than a force that eliminates its negative impact. To me, this matters. Most companies are looking at sustainability and are basically saying, sustainability is your kid coming home from school and saying, Daddy, you should be very proud of me. I only punched the teacher twice. And you should be proud because yesterday he came home and he punched the teacher 3 times and he spat on someone else. This is sustainability. It is applauding companies for doing less bad than the day before. And it's just not enough. It is nowhere near good enough anymore. The narrative needs to shift from footprint, all of the shit we do, towards handprint. And really starting to think a little bit more about the good we can do. Because the beauty of the handprint approach is not just that it's good for the world, but it's so much better for business. One of our clients, Ultra Football in Australia, implemented a very simple automation into their checkout process, part of performance advertising, saying we're going to plant a tree in Australia for everyone who buys products with us. Within 2 weeks, they increased sales by 16%. Now, is this good for the planet? That is a very fair question. Because is it necessarily good for the planet to sell more product? And the answer is, it's not a very clear yes or no, but it is good for business. And it is also what is being done, planting those trees, that in itself is good for the planet. Whether it kind of nets out, whether it totally balances out, in my world, I don't care. I think we spend way too much time delineating our guilt as organizations. How bad are we exactly? How much money are companies globally spending on figuring out as exact as possible how much damage they're doing to the planet? And shouldn't they spend this money on actually doing something good rather than on figuring out their accounting? I genuinely think it's a misappropriation of resources. And moreover, we're still really bad at it. BCG in 2022 published a report that said that companies globally underestimate their carbon emissions by an average 45%, despite millions and billions of dollars spent on exactly figuring out how much carbon emissions are in my supply chain. And I'm not saying it's all unimportant. I'm saying we have to frame it in a wider debate. Our environmental responsibility as an organization is not just the damage we do to this planet. We can have a different perspective, thinking about what we can do that actually creates positive impact. Goodloop, one of our competitors in this space, in the advertising space, turns attention into donations. Right? So as a consequence, what they do is they work with brands and say, what do you care about? Let's integrate this in your advertising campaign, and they can have all of these amazing results. Why? Because people in general care about this stuff. In collaboration with Teats, we launched Teats Care. Teats is an advertising technology company. And what Teats Care does is turns ads into actions, where a company can advertise not only for itself, but also for a good cause that they care about, and contribute to that good cause as and when they advertise, right into the creative ad units itself. Now, this is in French, but we've seen this. We've done this in Singapore with Foodpanda. We've done it with Uber in Japan. And what we've seen, really interestingly, is that this just increases the things you care about when you work in advertising. Ad performance, click-through rate, ad completion rate, positive brand recall, all of those things that are the main KPIs of an advertiser are going to be improved when you're doing something that actually says, hey, this is not just an ad. This ad restores corals, or this ad gives access to water for people that don't have water. So some of the numbers we got from our latest work in Japan show that you get 32% increase in click-through rate, 31% increase in likely to recommend this brand, all of these things that you really care about. And it's much cheaper than doing other ways or finding other ways to do this. So creating positive impact as part of your strategy, if it's done well, can just be very good for business. So my organization, Handprint, works on this by connecting the best organizations in the impact space, irrespective of what kind of sustainable development goal they work on, connecting them through a digital platform to a variety of industries that want to contribute to positive impact, but also capture business value from doing so. What we enable companies to do is access the best project, access the information, the rich information, the videos, the stories, as well as the credible data on what actually happens on the ground, and embed that into feedback loops with their customers, with their employees, and with anyone who wants to listen. And the good news is most people want to listen. The winning strategy for sustainability is not measure your footprint, reduce your footprint, write about it in your annual report, because nobody cares. Governments care. Your customers don't care. Your employees don't care, because everyone is doing it. And the more governments mandate this level of reporting, the more you'll have to do it, and the less a competitive advantage it can be, because everyone is doing it. The winning strategy focuses on figuring out what your customers want, what the planet needs, and what aligns with your brand. If you find the sweet spot between those three things, integrating that need, that planetary need that is linked to your customers, integrating that in every interaction with your customers, with your employees, with your partners is going to grow your business. That's the promise of sustainability for the future, and it's what my company, Handprint, is trying to do. Thank you.